Hello, I wanted to make a quick video about the difference between a literature review and an iMAP and how you might make your own decision about which one you produce for your dissertation. Someone has sent me the question, what's the difference between a literature review and an iMAP? And I think the answers to the questions like that are on Canvas and have been provided by your subject teachers, but I'll try to give my perspective as well to see if that helps. So I'm going to answer kind of what is a literature review and what is an iMAP. And in order to do that, I'm going to talk about a few metaphors that we use to help us talk about and understand research and academic writing. So why do we write literature reviews? Well, a couple of weeks ago, I made a video in which I used this image. Perhaps you remember it. I used this image to talk about something that Isaac Newton said or wrote in a letter, which was, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." So there you go, giants all the way down to the ground, and you're standing on top of them. And this is one way of thinking about research. And you can think about your dissertation as your piece of research. Now, we don't start research from zero. We can't find a topic that nobody has ever discussed or written about before. There's always some writing and some research that's already there and already been done. There are already giants whose shoulders that we need to stand on. So a literature review is a way of explaining what you can see from the shoulders of giants. So when you kind of when you start your dissertation project, you're thinking about what do people already know about my topic, what have people already said and written about my topic, and then what can I do next. That's the purpose of a traditional literature review. And I think it might help you to think about literature reviews by thinking of research, and particularly writing about research, as a conversation. Now, I want you to imagine you're at a party and you walk into this room. Okay, so you walk into the room, there are lots of people having a conversation, everybody's involved. There's a guy over here, he's kind of saying a lot, and there's a woman here who doesn't seem to agree with him and seems to be saying the opposite. They're not fighting, but they're having a really interesting looking conversation. Now, in that situation, so you walk into this room. Let me show you the room again. You walk into the room, the conversation is underway. What do you do? Now, I think what you don't do is just go in and start talking. Okay, you don't join in the conversation straight away because, look who's in this room. There are so many people. We don't know if any of them are experts about the topic. We don't know what everyone in the room thinks. If we start talking now and just giving our opinions, we could embarrass ourselves. So I think what we really do as people in this situation is we sit down and we listen. And we try to work out who thinks what and who agrees with whom. And eventually we'll be able to start kind of joining in, maybe first with a bit of body language, just kind of like nodding and smiling at the people that we agree with, and making some just noises like, yeah, just agreeing, or are you sure? We don't even have to say full sentences to start joining this conversation. But eventually we'll feel confident enough, we'll have listened to enough people to form our own position and to join in. I think you can think about research and research writing like this. We need to do a lot of reading to understand what we think about the subject. And it's only when we've done enough reading that we should start to feel confident enough to do our own writing and make our own contribution to the conversation. So that's research as a conversation. And you might want to think of a literature review as reporting on the conversation so far, of telling your audience who are the different people in the room having the conversation, who's got the loudest voice, who's been in the conversation for longest, who started the conversation, who made the most recent contribution to the conversation, and really importantly, who do you agree with? Who agrees with one another? Okay, so a literature review is a way of reporting the conversation so far on your topic. Now, another way of thinking about research is as a journey. We actually often see kind of people talking about their research journey, and research can be quite an adventure. I went to Google Images, I typed in research journey, and I think one of the top responses was this very complicated map. But yeah, you kind of, if you want to pause and have a look at the screen in a bit more detail, you'll find that anyone conducting some research, they start somewhere and they finish somewhere. Probably the finish point for them in one particular piece of research is when they publish their research, or certainly when they finish writing it. And there might be lots of steps along the way which involve reading and discussions and something that gives you some inspiration, which might be reading about another topic or reading about a theory. Okay? Now, if you think about research as a journey, then I think it might make sense to think about the iMAP in that way as well. Like the iMAP is like your journey. If the dissertation is your research, you're going to build up with each step of your journey, you'll build up a picture, you'll build up a map. Okay, I read this on this day, and then that led me to reading this, and then I read this theory and it made me think differently about that thing that I just read, and then I watched this film or I attended a lecture, it made me think about this, I found this other piece of information. And iMap is really good for you if you kind of want to think creatively about this whole process. And I sometimes do this with post-it notes. I write down different ideas and I kind of stick them on like the board behind me so that I can move them around and work out now what's the best route for me to take in my journey, in my story. So if you like the idea of your dissertation as a journey, then maybe an iMap is a good idea for you. If you are happy with the idea of writing about research as a conversation or kind of explaining where we are at present, then a more traditional literature review would probably work very well for you as well. There are lots of similarities because when we write a literature review, we still can make it into a kind of story. We have to organize it in a way. And an iMap, in many ways, is kind of about kind of setting out information in a way that makes sense to you. And you have to do that as part of the planning for a literature review. Okay, I can say more on this in future, but please do respond with a message, either recorded or written, and do let me know if you have any further questions. Let's imagine that we're in this room and let's continue the conversation.